She witnessed the human fight barehanded and whispered, "I wish he were mine. The spaceport was alive with motion and light." Ships of all shapes and sizes hummed and glimmered under the artificial sky, docking and departing from the massive orbital hub that hovered above the mining planet Viola 9. Alien merchants called out in strange, melodic languages, advertising their goods, crystals, rare metals, and devices humans had never imagined. The air was thick with a mix of recycled atmosphere, ozone, and the faint tang of alien minerals, but it carried a rhythm, a pulse of energy that drew the eyes and hearts of anyone who arrived. Captain Elias Gray stepped off the shuttle, his boots clicking against the metallic floor. He paused for a moment, taking in the vastness of the hub. To an alien observer, he looked ordinary, tall for a human but thin, wearing only his standard utility suit. His equipment was simple: a small comm device, a utility belt, and nothing that would impress the heavily armored aliens milling around him. Yet Elias had a calm that drew attention, a quiet presence that made even the busiest merchants and travelers notice him, if only for a second. He was not here to show off. His mission was diplomatic, an attempt to build trust between humans and the alien colonies on Viola 9. However, Elias had learned long ago that diplomacy sometimes needed a personal touch. Observing, listening, and acting when necessary could achieve far more than negotiations alone. In the upper balconies of the hub, Lyra watched. She was young by her people's standards, though taller and more imposing than many of her peers. Her skin shimmered faintly with the bioluminescence common to her species, and her eyes were sharp, scanning every movement below. She had been trained in combat from childhood, mastering the arts of weapons and strategy that her people revered. Her arms were strong, her movements precise, and her mind sharp. Yet, despite all her training, she could not help but be intrigued by this human. "Why is he here?" she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible over the hub's noise. "He has nothing at all to defend himself with." Before she could ponder further, chaos erupted. A group of alien youths, reckless and hot-headed, began a fight over a shipment of rare minerals. Their exosuits clashed and sparked, weapons extended, and the crowd began to panic. Merchants shouted, guards moved too slowly, and the situation was about to spiral into serious harm. Elias saw it immediately. He didn't pause to calculate the odds or consider the risk. Without weapons or armor, he moved toward the crowd, placing himself between the fighting youths and the civilians. One of the youths, seeing a human in their path, sneered and lunged with a compact energy baton. Elias dodged instinctively, rolling to the side and catching the alien's wrist, twisting it until the baton fell to the ground. The youth yelled in frustration, lunging again, but Elias was faster than expected. With a quick pivot, he used the momentum of the alien's own attack to push him backward, away from the civilians. From her vantage point, Lyra's eyes widened. Every move he made was deliberate and confident. He wasn't reckless, but he wasn't cautious either. It was as if he could see the fight before it happened and knew exactly what to do. One alien struck him with a small blade, but Elias grabbed the alien's forearm, sidestepped, and sent him stumbling into a pile of crates. The crates tumbled and clattered, creating a barrier between the humans and the aggressors. She felt something stir within her, a strange mix of admiration and curiosity. She had never seen someone face danger so calmly without the support of armor or weaponry. Her people valued strength in metal and energy, in force and technology, yet here was a human who commanded attention without any of it. Elias continued to move among the chaos, guiding frightened civilians to safety. His hands, though unarmed, were precise, capable of deflecting attacks and immobilizing those who threatened others. One young child had wandered too close to a skirmish. Elias scooped the child up, shielding her with his body, and carried her away from danger. Lyra whispered again, more softly this time, almost to herself, "I wish he were mine." She didn't fully understand the words, nor the feeling behind them, but she knew it was genuine. It was the first time she had ever felt this drawn to someone without knowing anything about them, without understanding the full measure of their strength. The fight eventually drew the attention of the security forces. Alien guards descended from the upper platforms, armed with nets, stun devices, and authority. Elias, seeing no more civilians in immediate danger, stepped back and allowed the guards to take over. He made no boast of his actions, said nothing, simply nodded once to the people he had protected and turned to leave. Lyra followed, keeping a careful distance. She wanted to speak to him to understand what he was, why he moved the way he did, why he seemed different. But she hesitated, unsure if she should reveal herself or if it would seem presumptuous to approach a human she barely knew. As Elias moved through the crowd, aliens whispered among themselves. Many dismissed his actions as luck, claiming that he had survived because the aggressors were inexperienced or clumsy. Others, however, watched with growing unease, recognizing that this human had something the aliens could not name, something innate, something beyond technology or training. Lyra found herself thinking not of his strength alone, but of his mind. Humans, she had heard, were unpredictable, clever, and resilient. They adapted quickly, found solutions where others saw only barriers. Yet she had never seen it in practice, never seen a human face multiple trained combatants with nothing but bare hands and instinct and emerge victorious. By the time Elias reached the docking area to retrieve his belongings, the hub had mostly returned to its normal rhythm. Merchants were shouting, vendors were haggling, and travelers moved about with renewed caution. Yet a small circle of onlookers remained, talking quietly about the human who had moved like water among a storm of violence. Elias knelt briefly, checking the child he had carried. She smiled at him, shyly at first, and then with trust. He returned the smile with a nod, understanding that small victories were sometimes as important as grand ones. He had come to Viola 9 with a mission, but already he had left an impression deeper than he had anticipated. Lyra watched him as he turned to leave. Her mind was racing, analyzing every movement, every detail. His calm in chaos, his unassuming demeanor, the careful way he protected the innocent. It was unlike anything she had seen among her people. She felt a pull, something she couldn't ignore, something that went beyond curiosity. As he walked away, disappearing into the crowd, she whispered once more, almost reverently, "I wish he were mine." This time the words carried a weight of promise and longing. She didn't know what it meant yet, but she knew she would not forget him. The day ended with the city lights reflecting on the metallic surfaces, casting long shadows and glimmers that seemed to mirror the human's calm but powerful presence. Lyra lingered on the balcony, watching as the human moved through the crowd. Something inside her had changed. She had witnessed bravery, skill, and something deeper, an integrity that could not be measured by technology or strength. And as the night deepened over the hub, she felt the first stirrings of a thought that would not leave her. That humans, perhaps, were far more than her people had ever believed, and that this human, this Elias Gray, was someone extraordinary, the morning after the fight, word of. The human's actions had already spread throughout the orbital hub. By midday, nearly every alien who had witnessed, or even heard of, the event was talking about him. Whispers circulated in markets, cafes, and training halls. A human had stood barehanded against trained warriors and emerged victorious. Many dismissed it as luck, but a growing number began to wonder if there was something extraordinary about him. Lyra arrived early at the central arena, a towering circular structure used for training and contests of skill. She moved swiftly along the upper observation decks, her eyes scanning the floor below. Today, she would witness the human up close. She was not a spectator for amusement. She wanted to see if he was truly as capable as rumors suggested. The arena floor was cleared and prepared for the challenge. Alien warriors, each equipped with armor and energy weapons, gathered in groups. They were selected not randomly, but as the elite, the best combatants the city had to offer. Their exosuits hummed with power, lights blinking as energy shields activated and weapons readied. Elias Gray arrived quietly, his boots making soft echoes on the metallic ramp. He carried no weapons, no armor beyond his utility suit. To any alien looking at him for the first time, he seemed outmatched before the fight even began. Yet his posture was calm, controlled, and confident. He surveyed the arena, noting the positions of the alien warriors and the gaps in their formations. Lyra's eyes widened. He was calm under pressure, and she could sense that he was thinking several steps ahead. While the aliens relied on technology and training, Elias relied on observation, timing, and instinct. There was a fluidity in his stance, a rhythm in his breathing that spoke of years of experience in facing danger. The first match began. A heavily armored alien warrior lunged toward him with a glowing energy blade. Elias sidestepped with precise timing, twisting his body and using the alien's momentum to send him stumbling backward. The crowd gasped. The alien landed on his back but quickly recovered, charging again. Ilias grabbed his wrist, spun him, and pushed him gently but firmly into a padded barrier. Not once did he strike with aggression. Instead, he used skill, balance, and strategy. Lyra felt her heart beat faster. She had seen thousands of warriors train in the arena, yet none moved like this human. There was intelligence in his motions, a way of reading opponents that went beyond reflex. It was as if he could anticipate what the alien would do before they acted. The next opponents came in pairs, swinging and thrusting in coordination. Ilias adjusted instantly, moving with a grace that seemed almost unnatural. He dodged, blocked, and maneuvered, turning their combined attacks against them. At one point, he used a low wall as leverage, vaulting over the attackers and landing behind them. His movements were a mix of human creativity and disciplined instinct, something the aliens had not anticipated. From her perch above, Lyra whispered to herself again, "I wish he were mine." The words slipped out before she could stop them. She realized it was more than admiration now. She felt a personal connection forming. His bravery, his skill, and his calmness drew her in. She could see it in his eyes. He valued life and fairness, and his strength was not for pride or power, it was for protection. The matches continued, growing more difficult. Each group of alien warriors was stronger, faster, and more experienced than the last. They tried new strategies, combinations, and attacks, but Ilias adapted quickly. When one alien tried to trap him in a corner, he leapt off the floor, using the walls to pivot and land behind his attacker. When another attempted to strike from above, he ducked and rolled, redirecting the momentum of the attack to unbalance his opponent. The crowd, initially skeptical, grew silent. Even the veteran warriors watching from the sidelines could not believe what they were witnessing. One by one, the elite aliens fell back, either disarmed, off balance, or simply unable to land a strike on the human who moved like water through their attacks. Lyra's fascination deepened with every move. She studied his technique, trying to understand how he thought, how he anticipated so accurately. It was not just reflex or training. There was an intuitive intelligence guiding every action. Her mind raced with possibilities. Could a human truly teach her people something about combat, about instinct, and about courage that their long tradition had overlooked? When the final match began, Ilias faced 3 of the top warriors at once. They circled him, their armor glowing and weapons raised. The tension in the arena was palpable. Lyra held her breath as he assessed their positions, their strengths, their weaknesses. In a single fluid motion, he launched into action. He moved fast, almost too fast to follow. One warrior lunged at him with a swinging blade. Ilias ducked and used the momentum to push him into his companion. Another charged with a thrusting spear, only to have Ilias step aside, grab the spear lightly, and redirect it harmlessly to the ground. The third attempted to strike from behind, but Ilias sensed it, turned, and blocked the attack with his forearm. The aliens were caught off guard. They had expected technology and raw power to dominate, but they faced a force that relied on anticipation, strategy, and adaptability. Every movement was precise. Every dodge, every redirection, every small adjustment demonstrated a mastery beyond their understanding. Lyra's heart raced. She could not look away. She had trained her entire life to be perfect in combat, yet she saw in this human a combination of skill and courage that surpassed even the most disciplined warriors. His hands were bare, his movements simple yet devastatingly effective, and he maintained control over the chaos. After what felt like hours, though in reality it was only minutes, Ilias stood victorious. The 3 elite warriors were uninjured but humbled, acknowledging his skill with nods and lowered weapons. The crowd erupted, some in disbelief, others in admiration. The arena's speakers announced the outcome. A human, unarmed, had bested the best warriors of the hub. Lyra felt a strange warmth in her chest. She stepped closer to the rail, leaning forward. She wanted to see him, to meet him, to understand the mind behind the movements. As Ilias left the arena floor, he did not boast. He did not raise his hands in triumph. Instead, he walked steadily toward the exit, eyes forward, calm and composed. Lyra followed discreetly, keeping her distance. She noticed the way he moved, how he observed the environment even as he walked. There was no arrogance in him, no need for praise. Yet his presence commanded attention, a quiet authority that drew people naturally toward him. Outside the arena, a group of spectators tried to speak with him, offering questions, congratulations, and challenges. Elias responded with short, polite answers, never slowing his pace. He smiled faintly at the civilians he passed, acknowledging their relief and gratitude without fanfare. Lyra finally approached when the crowd thinned. She stepped forward carefully, unsure how to begin. "Human," she called softly. Elias turned his head slightly, regarding her with a calm, curious expression. "I am Elias Gray," he said, his voice steady but gentle. "And you are?" "Lyra," she replied, her tone carrying authority yet tinged with curiosity. I watched you today." "Your skill, it is unusual." She hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "For a human, it is extraordinary." Elias nodded. "Thank you, I only acted to protect those in danger, that is all." Lyra studied him, noting the simplicity of his words, the honesty in his eyes. There was no pretense, no boast, no claim of superiority. Yet she sensed something far deeper than raw strength, something that came from experience, courage, and a mind willing to think beyond conventional limits. "You have a way of seeing things," she said softly. "You anticipate before others even act. It is impressive." She caught herself, feeling her admiration deepen. Before she could stop herself, she whispered, almost under her breath, "I wish he were mine." Elias did not respond immediately. Instead, he studied her with a gentle curiosity. Then he smiled faintly. "I suppose we each have strengths in different ways," he said. "You are a skilled observer yourself." Lyra felt a blush rise to her cheeks. She had expected skepticism or dismissal, yet he acknowledged her presence with respect. For the first time, she wondered what it would be like to train or fight alongside a human, to see if their instincts and strategies could complement one another. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Lyra found herself thinking constantly of Elias, the way he moved, the calmness in his eyes, the courage that did not rely on armor or weapons. She returned to her quarters that evening, still whispering his name softly, replaying the moments in her mind. Something had shifted inside her. Humans, she realized, were far more than her people believed, and Elias Gray was someone extraordinary, someone who could inspire change in ways she could not yet imagine. The sun, or rather the artificial star illuminating the hub, began to set, casting long reflections across the metallic structures. Lyra stood by her window, watching the city below, wondering when she might see the human again. She did not know what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain. The memory of Elias Gray, the human who fought barehanded, would not leave her. And in the quiet of the night, she whispered once more, this time with certainty, "I wish he were mine." The next day, the hub was quieter than usual. Rumors of Elias Gray's extraordinary skill had spread far and wide. Many aliens avoided confrontation, choosing to watch from a distance rather than risk a challenge. Those who had witnessed the fight continued to discuss it in hushed tones, their curiosity about the human growing by the hour. Lyra could not concentrate on her usual duties. Her thoughts were filled with Elias, the way he had moved, how he had assessed situations, and how he had protected civilians without hesitation. She felt a strong desire to understand him better. She wanted to know not just how he fought, but why he fought with such calm courage, why he relied on instinct and intelligence rather than the advanced technology her people prized above all. She decided to approach him. Finding him was easier than expected. He was in the central plaza, quietly helping a group of merchants reorganize crates that had been toppled during yesterday's skirmish. He moved efficiently, carefully, his hands steady, his mind alert to every detail. Lyra stepped forward, her boots making a soft sound on the metallic floor. Elias looked up, his calm gaze meeting hers. "You are the human from the arena," she said, her voice steady, though her heart raced. "I wish to speak with you, privately." Elias regarded her for a moment, then nodded. "I am Elias Gray. I will listen." He led her to a quiet corner of the plaza, away from the bustle of the crowd. Lyra studied him closely. Even in casual posture, he exuded confidence. His eyes scanned the surroundings, taking in every detail, every movement. It was the same attentiveness she had seen in the arena, the same intelligence guiding every action. She felt a mixture of admiration and curiosity, feelings she could not fully explain. "I want to understand you," she said after a moment of silence. "Your fighting, it is unlike anything I have seen. You rely on instinct, intelligence, and timing rather than weapons or armor. How is it possible?" Elias smiled faintly. "I grew up learning to solve problems with my hands and my mind," he said simply. I do not have armor or advanced weapons, so I learned to rely on observation and quick thinking. It is not magic, not luck, just practice and focus. Lyra nodded slowly. I have trained my whole life. Weapons, exosuits, strategy, everything I know is what my people taught me. Yet you move in ways I cannot predict. There is creativity in your instincts. Elias looked at her, noticing the keen observation in her eyes. You are a skilled warrior yourself, he said. I have watched you. You notice patterns, assess situations, and act with precision. We may have different methods, but our goals are similar, protecting others and staying calm under pressure. She felt a surge of respect for him. His humility, even after defeating the best warriors of her people, was remarkable. There was no arrogance, no need for praise. He acted because it was right, not because he wanted recognition. Lyra realized that strength and courage could exist in forms she had never truly considered. I want to learn from you, she said suddenly, and perhaps you could learn from me as well. Her words surprised her. She had not expected to speak so openly, yet something about Elias inspired honesty and trust. Elias regarded her thoughtfully. I would be honored, he said finally. We may see things differently, but that can make us stronger together. Over the next few days, Lyra and Elias began a unique kind of training. She introduced him to the techniques her people used, from hand-to-hand combat to tactical simulations, while he shared his own methods of observation, improvisation, and instinctual problem-solving. The combination was remarkable. Where Lyra relied on strength and speed, Elias relied on anticipation and adaptability. Together, they discovered new ways to defend, attack, and protect that neither could achieve alone. During one session, a simulated threat emerged, a mechanical drone programmed to mimic aggressive alien tactics. Lyra prepared to counter with a series of complex maneuvers, while Elias observed silently. The drone moved quickly, striking at angles she had not considered. Elias whispered advice, and she adjusted. Together, they neutralized the threat in ways that impressed even the instructors overseeing the training. Lyra felt her admiration deepen. This human, so different from anyone she had known, had a mind that complemented hers perfectly. His presence challenged her assumptions about strength, skill, and courage. She realized that true power was not in the weapons one carried, but in the ability to think, adapt, and act with clarity under pressure. Their partnership soon extended beyond training. Elias accompanied her on patrols throughout the city, helping maintain peace and safety. His calm approach and quick thinking prevented accidents and resolved conflicts before they escalated. Civilians began to notice, showing gratitude and respect. Aliens who had been skeptical started to reconsider their assumptions about humans, noting that Elias' courage and intelligence were as valuable as any advanced technology. One afternoon, while walking through a busy market district, Lyra noticed a small commotion. A group of alien youths had cornered a child, demanding credits in exchange for leaving her alone. Without hesitation, Elias stepped forward. He did not draw a weapon, did not threaten. He simply moved with precision, positioning himself between the child and the aggressors. The youths hesitated, unsure how to act against a human who moved with such confidence. Elias spoke calmly, reasoning with them, using his presence to assert authority. Slowly, they backed away, leaving the child unharmed. Lyra watched, impressed once again. It was not force alone that commanded respect. It was courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act for the right reasons. That evening, Lyra and Elias returned to the training facility. The city's lights reflected on the metal surfaces, creating a pattern of glow and shadow. Lyra felt a strange sense of peace walking beside him. Despite the excitement and chaos of the day, his presence brought calm. You are different from anyone I have ever met, she said quietly. Not just in skill, in your way of seeing the world. Elias smiled faintly. And you are different too, he replied. Your people are disciplined, strong, and clever. You challenge me in ways I did not expect. Lyra looked at him, her gaze steady. I wish you were here all the time, she admitted softly, feeling her voice tremble slightly. Not just for training, but for everything. Elias regarded her for a moment, sensing the depth of her words. I am here now, he said simply, and I will stay as long as I am needed. Over the following weeks, their bond grew stronger. They continued to train together, combining their skills in ways that amazed instructors and fellow warriors alike. Lyra began to see changes in her people as well. Other aliens observed her partnership with Elias and noted the results. New strategies, greater efficiency, and a different kind of courage emerging among the younger warriors. The hub itself seemed to shift in subtle ways. The idea that humans were weak or incapable began to fade, replaced by respect and curiosity. Conversations in marketplaces and training halls often included mentions of Elias Gray, the human who had faced the best of their warriors and taught lessons in courage and strategy without ever using weapons. One day, Lyra led Elias to a high balcony overlooking the city. The sun, or rather the artificial light simulating it, cast golden hues across the metallic surfaces. She watched the crowd below, then turned to him. "Do you see it?" she asked. "They are beginning to understand what I saw from the arena. Your strength, your courage, it inspires them." Elias shook his head modestly. "I do not seek recognition," he said. "I act because it is right. If others learn from it, that is a result, not my goal." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. "Even so, you change everything," she whispered. "You make people question what they thought was possible, and you make me feel something I did not expect." Elias studied her quietly, sensing the honesty in her words. He could see the admiration in her eyes, the respect, and perhaps something more. It was rare for him to connect with anyone so quickly, yet Lyra's presence was comforting, inspiring, and challenging all at once. "Then perhaps," he said finally, "we are learning from each other in more ways than one." Lyra smiled, feeling a rare lightness in her heart. She had trained for years, mastered combat and strategy, yet Elias had opened her eyes to something beyond skill, something deeper, something human, something extraordinary. As they stood together overlooking the city, the future felt full of possibilities. Lyra knew challenges lay ahead, rival factions, political tension, and threats beyond the hub. But she also knew that with Elias by her side, their combined courage, intelligence, and skill could overcome anything. And as the city lights flickered below them, she whispered softly, just for herself, "I wish he were mine," knowing that perhaps, in some way he already was. Days passed, and the alliance between Elias and Lyra strengthened. Their bond was not just personal but tactical. Together, they had become a force to be reckoned with in the hub. Citizens and warriors alike began to notice how their combination of human instinct and alien discipline could solve problems that neither species could handle alone. Lyra had arranged for a series of joint exercises to demonstrate their methods to others. The training halls buzzed with anticipation. Aliens who had previously dismissed Elias now watched with curiosity, some with hesitation, and a few with quiet admiration. Even the instructors, seasoned warriors who prided themselves on their knowledge, were eager to see how a human could influence training outcomes. The first exercise was a simulated urban crisis. A malfunctioning security drone had begun attacking civilians in a controlled environment. Lyra and Elias entered the arena together, moving with precision and coordination. The alien instructors activated the drone, which lunged at them with mechanical speed. Lyra drew her energy weapon, her movements calculated and sharp. Elias, unarmed, observed for a moment, analyzing the drone's pattern. As the drone attacked Lyra, Elias moved quickly, stepping between her and the threat, redirecting its momentum with a simple but effective push. Lyra noticed his timing, perfectly synchronized with her own movements, and adjusted her strikes to create openings in the drone's attack pattern. Together, they neutralized the drone within minutes. The instructors were impressed. Aliens in the audience whispered among themselves, realizing that human adaptability combined with alien precision could create results that neither species could achieve alone. Afterward, Lyra approached Elias. "Do you see how they watch us?" she said, her voice a mixture of excitement and pride. "They are beginning to understand that there is more to strength than armor and weapons." Elias smiled faintly. "It is not about impressing them," he said. "It is about showing them a way to work together. Strength is not only in force, but in thought, adaptability, and trust." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. His words were simple, yet they carried profound truth. For the first time, she realized that courage was not measured by the size of a weapon or the toughness of armor, but by the willingness to act correctly, even in the face of danger. Their partnership continued to grow beyond training exercises. Elias accompanied Lyra on patrols through the city, assisting with disputes and small crises. His calm presence and quick thinking prevented accidents and diffused tension before it escalated. Civilians who once feared alien conflict now looked to him with hope and admiration. One afternoon, a commotion erupted in a crowded market district. A group of alien youths had cornered a small child, demanding credits for leaving her alone. Elias did not hesitate. He moved calmly, positioning himself between the child and the aggressors. "Step back," he said firmly, his voice carrying authority despite its softness. The youths hesitated, confused by his confidence and lack of threat. Elias continued, explaining calmly why their actions were harmful, reasoning with them in a way that challenged their assumptions without aggression. Slowly, they stepped aside, leaving the child unharmed. Lyra watched silently, her admiration deepening. His ability to command respect without violence, his understanding of balance and psychology, was remarkable. It was not only his skill in combat that inspired her, but his way of thinking, his humanity, and his ability to act rightly under pressure. That evening, Lyra and Elias returned to the training facility. The city lights reflected on the metal surfaces, casting a warm glow across the arena. Lyra felt a rare sense of calm, walking beside him. Despite the constant motion and energy of the hub, his presence brought a grounding, a focus she had never experienced before. "You are unlike anyone I have ever met," she said softly, glancing at him. "Not just in skill, but in your way of thinking, your ability to see the world clearly." Elias smiled faintly. "And you are different as well," he replied. "Your people are disciplined, strong, and intelligent. You challenge me in ways I did not expect." Lyra felt a flutter in her chest. She had trained all her life to be precise, to be controlled, to rely on her strength and skill. Yet Elias had introduced her to something beyond training, a new way of thinking about combat, about courage, and about the value of life. She stopped walking, turning to face him. "I wish you were here all the time," she admitted softly, "not just for training, but for everything." Elias studied her quietly, sensing the honesty in her words. "I am here now," he said simply, "and I will stay as long as I am needed." Over the following days, their bond deepened. Training sessions grew more complex. They began combining human improvisation with alien strategy, creating exercises that challenged both their skills and their thinking. Lyra noticed a change not only in herself, but also in the younger warriors observing them. Aliens who had previously scoffed at the idea of humans being capable now attempted to incorporate elements of Elias' methods into their own training. One afternoon, a challenge arose that would test them more than any previous exercise. A group of rogue warriors had taken control of a minor facility on the outskirts of the city. They were armed, disciplined, and experienced. Lyra and Elias were called to intervene before the situation escalated. They approached the facility cautiously. Lyra drew her weapon, scanning for threats, while Elias walked calmly beside her, unarmed but alert. The rogue warriors expected a traditional confrontation, but Elias moved differently. He observed the environment, noted the positions and patterns of the enemy, and guided Lyra in subtle ways that allowed them to neutralize threats efficiently. He directed her to use her weapon at precise moments, while he positioned himself to intercept any unexpected attacks. Together, they advanced through the facility, clearing rooms methodically. The rogue warriors were caught off guard by the combination of alien skill and human intuition. One by one, they were restrained without serious injury, demonstrating that strategy and collaboration could overcome force alone. After the operation, Lyra turned to Elias, her eyes wide with admiration. "You make everything seem possible," she said softly. "Even when the odds are against us, you see a way forward." Elias nodded modestly. "It is not about seeing the impossible," he said. "It is about finding solutions where others see only barriers. Courage and intelligence together can accomplish what strength alone cannot." Lyra felt her respect and admiration deepen further. She realized that her whispered words from the arena, "I wish he were mine," carried more weight than she had first understood. It was not just about personal feelings, it was about trust, respect, and partnership. Their growing influence was felt across the hub. Aliens began to reconsider their assumptions about humans, recognizing that courage, intelligence, and adaptability were as valuable as armor and weapons. Some elders still expressed skepticism, but even they could not deny the results. Elias Gray, the human who had fought barehanded, was changing perceptions and inspiring a new understanding of strength and heroism. One evening, Lyra and Elias stood atop a high balcony, overlooking the city as the artificial sun dipped below the horizon. The lights of the hub reflected on the metallic surfaces, creating a shimmering panorama. Lyra turned to Elias, her expression softening. "You have changed everything here," she said. "Not just through fighting, but through the way you act, the way you think, the way you care." Elias smiled faintly. "I only act as I must," he replied. "If others learn from it, that is a result, not my intention." Lyra nodded, feeling warmth in her chest. "Even so, the effect is extraordinary," she whispered. "You make people believe in something greater than themselves. And you make me believe in more than skill or training. You make me believe in courage, heart, and human spirit." Elias regarded her quietly, sensing the depth of her words. He could feel the trust, respect, and growing bond between them. It was rare for him to connect with anyone so deeply, yet Lyra's presence was inspiring, comforting, and challenging all at once. "Then perhaps," he said finally, "we are learning from each other in more ways than one." Lyra smiled, a sense of lightness filling her chest. She had trained her entire life to be strong and precise, yet Elias had introduced her to a new perspective, one that combined strength with thought, courage with intelligence, and skill with heart. As they stood together, watching the city lights flicker and shimmer, Lyra felt a quiet certainty. Challenges still lay ahead, rival factions, political tension, and unexpected dangers. But she knew that with Elias by her side, their combined courage, intelligence, and skill could overcome anything. And as the night settled over the hub, she whispered softly, just to herself, "I wish he were mine," knowing that perhaps, in some way, he already was. The city had grown quiet under the artificial stars of the orbital hub, but beneath the calm surface, tension simmered. Rumors of unrest from outer districts had reached the Central Council. Some factions refused to accept the growing influence of humans and the unusual partnership between Elias Gray and Lyra. They whispered that a human could never truly lead or inspire, that relying on instinct over armor and weaponry was foolish. Yet the results were undeniable. Elias had proven his skill, his intelligence, and his courage time and again. Lyra stood at the edge of the training terrace, watching the city below. She felt the familiar pull in her chest, the mixture of admiration, curiosity, and something deeper she could not yet name. The events of the past weeks had changed her. She had trained her entire life to rely on discipline, skill, and strength, yet Elias had shown her that true courage came from the heart as much as the mind. A sudden alarm echoed through the hub, cutting through the night. Lyra and Elias exchanged a glance, the tension between them sharp and immediate. They moved swiftly to the command center, where screens displayed a chaotic scene. A rogue faction had mobilized a group of armored drones, attacking the central market district. Civilians were trapped and security forces were struggling to contain the assault. "This is serious," Lyra said, her voice steady but urgent. "If we don't act quickly, many could be hurt." Elias nodded, his calm presence grounding her. "We will stop them," he said simply. "We act as one, we protect as one." They arrived at the market district within minutes, a blur of motion and focus. The rogue drones moved with precision, targeting civilians and creating barriers to prevent escape. Lyra drew her energy weapon, while Elias remained unarmed, observing, calculating, and analyzing. The first wave of drones lunged forward, their energy weapons firing in sweeping arcs. Elias moved instinctively, dodging attacks with fluid motions that seemed almost impossible. He redirected the momentum of drones, causing them to collide harmlessly with barriers or each other. Lyra followed his lead, striking at precise moments, disarming drones and creating openings for civilians to escape. Civilians fled to safety, guided by Lyra and Elias. Their movements were synchronized, almost as if they anticipated each other's actions. The aliens who had observed their previous demonstrations began to understand what made them extraordinary: strategy, courage, and trust working in perfect harmony. As the fight continued, more drones appeared, more aggressive and faster than the previous wave. One drone targeted a young child hiding behind a stall. Elias reacted instantly, moving between the child and the threat. With a swift maneuver, he grabbed the drone's arm, twisting it to redirect its energy away from harm. The child looked up at him with wide, trusting eyes. Elias nodded, keeping a calm expression that reassured both the child and Lyra. Lyra's admiration deepened. This human, so different from anyone she had known, possessed a courage and clarity that transcended mere skill. He acted not for glory or recognition, but because it was right. And in doing so, he inspired her, the civilians, and even the alien warriors who witnessed his actions. The central wave of drones approached, larger and more powerful than before. Their coordinated attacks tested every skill Elias and Lyra had cultivated together. They moved as one, anticipating attacks and countering with precision. Elias' unarmed defense relied on observation, intuition, and timing, while Lyra's disciplined strikes complemented his movements perfectly. Together, they formed a seamless unit that overwhelmed the rogue drones. As the battle reached its climax, a particularly large drone surged toward them. It had advanced armor and heavy weaponry designed to neutralize multiple targets at once. Lyra fired multiple energy blasts, striking weak points, while Elias moved closer, dodging and deflecting its attacks with uncanny precision. He noticed a small seam in the armor, a weak spot the drone itself seemed unaware of. With a carefully timed strike, he used his strength and agility to disable the mechanism, causing the drone to collapse harmlessly. The remaining drones, seeing their leader disabled, faltered and retreated. Civilians cheered, alien warriors nodded in respect, and the market district slowly returned to order. Lyra turned to Elias, her chest swelling with pride and relief. "You did it," she said softly. "We did it." Elias smiled faintly, shaking his head. "We acted together," he said. "The credit is not mine alone. Everyone played a part. Courage, strategy, and trust, those are what made the difference." Lyra's gaze softened. She had trained her entire life to be precise, strong, and disciplined. Yet Elias had introduced her to something beyond training, a courage that came from the heart, a clarity that came from instinct, and a strength that inspired everyone around him. She realized that her whispered words from the arena, "I wish he were mine," carried more weight than she had understood. It was about trust, respect, and partnership as much as it was about admiration. As the city settled, Lyra led Elias to the high terrace overlooking the hub. The lights reflected on the metallic surfaces, painting the city in gold and silver hues. She turned to him, her expression calm but full of emotion. "You have changed everything here," she said softly. "Not just through fighting, but through the way you act, the way you think, the way you inspire." Elias regarded her quietly, sensing the depth of her words. He could feel the trust, respect, and bond between them. "I only act as I must," he said simply. "If others learn from it, that is a result, not my intention." Lyra nodded, feeling warmth in her chest. "Even so, the effect is extraordinary. You make people believe in something greater than themselves, and you make me believe in more than skill or training. You make me believe in courage, heart, and human spirit." For a moment, they stood together in silence, watching the city below. The artificial stars above reflected in their eyes, a mirror of light that seemed to celebrate their achievements and the bond they had formed. Lyra felt a certainty she had never known before. Challenges would continue, rival factions would rise, and dangers would test them, but together they were stronger than any threat. Finally, Elias spoke, his voice gentle but firm. "Then perhaps we are learning from each other in more ways than one." Lyra smiled, a sense of lightness filling her chest. She had trained for years to be strong and precise, yet Elias had introduced her to a new perspective, one that combined strength with thought, courage with intelligence, and skill with heart. The days that followed saw a new era for the hub. Humans were no longer seen as weak or incapable. They were respected, their potential acknowledged. Elias and Lyra continued to work together, training, guiding, and protecting. Their partnership became a symbol of what could be achieved when different strengths and perspectives came together. Lyra often thought back to the first time she had seen Elias fight barehanded in the arena. She remembered the awe she had felt, the whisper that escaped her lips. "I wish he were mine." Now, after weeks of shared experiences, battles, and victories, she understood the depth of that feeling. It was not mere admiration, it was trust, respect, and a bond forged through courage and understanding. One evening, as they prepared for another training session, Lyra turned to Elias, her expression soft. "You are more than I imagined," she said. "Not just a fighter, not just a human, but someone extraordinary. I am grateful that you are here." Elias looked at her, his calm eyes reflecting sincerity. "And I am grateful for you," he replied. "You have taught me that courage is not only about facing danger, but about understanding, partnership, and trust. Together, we are stronger than I ever imagined." Lyra's heart swelled. The challenges they had faced, the victories they had won, and the bond they had forged had changed her. She realized that the whispered wish from the arena was fulfilled, not through possession or ownership, but through connection, respect, and shared purpose. As the hub quieted for the night, Lyra and Elias stood together on the terrace, looking out over the city that had been changed by their courage and partnership. The artificial stars reflected in their eyes, a symbol of possibility, hope, and the strength that came from unity. Lyra whispered softly, almost to herself, "I wish he were mine," and this time it was a statement of certainty, not longing. In the days, battles, and victories they had shared, she knew that in every sense that mattered, trust, respect, partnership, and admiration, he already was. And as the lights of the hub shimmered below, Elias and Lyra stood side by side, ready to face whatever challenges the galaxy would send, confident in their courage, their bond, and the extraordinary potential of humanity.